Well, hello there, and thank you very much for clicking on this video today. So today we're going back to a very familiar story, but there has been some important updates. So we all know about Palestine Action and their unjust classification as a terrorist organisation. However, the co-founder of can take her case to Supreme Court after the Court of Appeal judges ruled that the group's ban was originally lawful. So this has been reported everywhere, the Independent, Guardian, LBC. People were also arrested outside the court, outside a particular courtroom, which I'll also get into. But it's been reported in places, even kind of places internationally as well. Places like Al Jazeera, I saw the Washington Post picking this up. So it's quite interesting that this is gaining more international attention. So this update in the legal challenge came after police arrested over 117 people at a protest outside Westminster Magistrates Court in central London for expressing support for the protest group. So to go back to it, so to kind of summarise, so back in June, 5 Court of Appeal judges said the ban on the organisation as a terror group was justified and proportionate in reference of freedom of expression rights. This overturned a previous judgment of 3 judges at the High Court who ruled in February that the then Home Secretary Yvette Cooper's decision to ban Palestine Action was unlawful after a legal challenge from the group's co-founder, Huda Amori. Now, after that particular judgment, Amori had said that she intended to take the case to the Supreme Court and to the European Court of Human Rights if necessary. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that why are people arrested? Well, hundreds gathered outside the magistrate courts in London, where more than 2,000 cases related to supporting the group had been due to be heard on Thursday, but their cases had been adjourned to October earlier this week, with many protesters shouting, "I oppose genocide, I support Palestine Action." These people were detained by police, while other demonstrators shouted, "Shame on you," and "Under what power?" Now, court officials confirmed that all cases relating to Palestine Action have been adjourned until October 26th October this year, to await the outcome of the Supreme Court appeal over the proscription of the group as a terrorist organisation. So we're going to have to be waiting quite a long time. And one thing that is infuriating, outside of the fact that this prescription of the organisation is completely unjust, is the fact that defendants from all over the country basically had to show up to this court. Quite a lot of whom were older people, then to only find out that it's basically been adjourned. So to go into some of the details of that. So defendants who had travelled from Yorkshire, Wales and Merseyside complained of chaos and told officials that they had not been told that their hearing was not taking place. The court service now faces a bill running to thousands of pounds due to having to compensate the defendants who travelled unnecessarily. I mean, this whole thing is a ginormous waste of money. Outside of the injustice of it, even if you're not particularly bothered by the injustice of it, maybe cared about the thousands and thousands of pounds that this is costing, and and the jail places that this is taking up. So, rather than a full hearing, the defendants have been advised to look out for a letter with a date when they next need to be in court. And to give you some examples of some of this, which LBC very kindly do, we have Claire Jeffrey, who was 52, who travelled to this court from Edinburgh and said she had not been told that her hearing had been adjourned. She commented, "Scotland's a long way, it's expensive to come here, we have to rearrange commitments." It's just really frustrating too, to be told you're on a court roll and then to turn up and they're like, no, you're not. So it's really discombobulating and frustrating. And Margie Mansfield from Chichester in West Sussex described the confusion around the court process as very stressful. In a letter from the court, she said she had been told she must attend for her first hearing scheduled for Thursday morning. But the letter also said, "Please do not attend court on July 30th unless you receive further instructions directly from Westminster Magistrates Court." And Miss Mansfield added, "It has been very difficult managing my normal family life. I have grandchildren, a husband and children. It's been very difficult. It's been very stressful. It's been very expensive coming back and forwards and sleepless nights." And so Tim Crossland, the co-founder of the activist group Defend Our Juries, who organised the protest in defiance of the law, in defiance of the unjustness of it, and in defiance of the police. And they also organised to defend the rights of juries to acquit based on their moral conscience. So he said people inside the court were being handed flyers informing them that their cases had been adjourned. He added when people got into court, they had been handed flyers which say to whom it may concern, hearing today's had been adjourned. The former government lawyer said, I've been connected to the legal system for quite a long time. I've never witnessed anything like this before. He added that that is not now how courts communicate with people on the trial. It is the clearest indication that the system has no way of dealing with what is going to be chaos. This is failing at the first hurdle. So there were protesters outside the court, many dressed in red or wearing a keffiyeh, a patterned material commonly used to show support for Palestine, waving Palestinian flags and held placards, and chanting "Free Palestine." This demonstration was initially designed to replicate a graduation ceremony where those supporting the pro-Palestinian cause would be given a certificate for defending fundamental freedoms. But this, however, was halted, of course, by police when two protesters were arrested in the process of constructing a small platform. The stage, the certificates, the series of posters were confiscated. Sue Morhol, who was 79, who witnessed the arrest, said two of the organisers were just trying to erect a small stage, but as soon as they were unfolding it, the police came along and just took them over and arrested them. They were cuffed and littered off. Mrs. Morhol, who was one of many pensioners at the protest, "We're old. If you put us in jail, it's easier for us. Young people nowadays have such stringent rules against them. That's why a lot of younger people can't do it. They risk carrying a terrorist supporter label the name for the rest of their lives. We're old. A lot of us, we've got a chance to carry the mantle for them." The Ministry of Justice had been contacted for comment, but shocker, they didn't want to comment on that. So going over to some more information about the whole situation in general. So this appeal that has been approved, so it's going up to appeal, it means that the fate of 3,500 people, that's a lot of people, who have so far been arrested for alleged support of Palestine Action since the ban remains in limbo, basically has their cases on hold until a lengthy legal prescription has been definitely resolved. And Ms. Amori, who was responsible for getting this appeal to go forward, added the prescription of the Palestine Action has become a vehicle for a wider, broader crackdown on the expression of solidarity with the Palestinian people. This is an unprecedented attack on free speech and the right to protest in this country. It's already having a chilling effect at a time when speaking about Israeli crimes could not be more urgent. She appealed directly to the Supreme Court to hear her case after the Court of Appeal decision refused permission to appeal against its own decision within hours of the application. The Court of Appeal review was comprised of 5 judges, which is unusual as it normally consists of 2 or 3. It included the country's 2 most senior judges, Lady Chief Justice Sukar and the Master of Rolls, Jeffrey Voss. The Supreme Court said it was arguable that the ban represented a disproportionate interference with the Articles 10 and 11 of the European Convention of Human Rights. And a lot of people on the far right go on and on about the European Convention of Human Rights. This is the kind of thing that the European Convention of Human Rights is actually here to protect. It's here to protect actual legitimate speech, which protects rights of freedom of speech and protest, respectively. So one thing that is this is all incredibly worrying, but so many people that were arrested were older people, pensioners, essentially. As it says here in The Guardian, many of the elderly protesters were laid down after speaking and were carried away by officers and arrested. Among these arrested was an 87-year-old woman in a wheelchair, because, old women in wheelchairs, notorious terrorists, Another person who was arrested was Sir Jonathan Porritt, was arrested for showing support for Palestine Action, according to the activist group Defend Our Juries. Porritt is a former director of the Friends of Earth and was an advisor to the Prince of Wales, now King Charles, for more than 30 years. Another pensioner that was arrested was Dick Scroop from Wolverhampton, who was one of those who was there to be arrested. Sorry, was one of those who was arrested, and he commented and said, "There's a genocide in which the British government is deeply implicated by its diplomatic efforts and its continues to supply weapons to Israel, and the attempt to suppress legitimate protests by wielding of such anti-terrorism laws is simply unacceptable. It's an assault on free speech," which it is. And by inviting support for Palestine Action, expressing membership of the group, the protesters risk for up to 14 years imprisonment in trials before a jury. And as we have seen, actually, in many of these cases, they're not actually tried under terrorism law. No. They're actually sentenced under terrorism law after they're found guilty on other things, as we covered on many videos. So even then, they often don't even charge them with terrorism from the get-go. No. Like a bunch of cowards and weasels that they are, what they do is they charge them with other things, and then if they're found guilty of that, they go, but, we're going to add on these terrorism charges, which the jury has no knowledge of, and the defendants themselves have no knowledge of, so they can't really defend against it, because it's added on later by the Crown Prosecution Service and ultimately the judge. Anyway, a significant escalation for most of the previous arrests for holding placards, which will be dealt with by magistrates and risk a maximum of 6 months in jail. Many arrested on Thursday had previously been arrested for holding placards allegedly supporting Palestine Action. And the Metropolitan Police said that the 117 people were arrested, most for expressing support for a prescribed organisation. So there you go. So, so we'll have to see where this legal challenge goes. Hopefully that this legal challenge is successful and this Palestine Action is not prescribed as a terrorist organisation anymore, because it shouldn't be. And one thing that does give me some hope is that, from what I've seen from some of the reporting on this, as I've said, this has kind of gone out a little bit. Previously, from what I had seen, it had been mostly UK news outlets which had been reporting on this particular ban and reporting about the arrests and the injustice of it all. But now I saw Al Jazeera covering this. I saw, as I said, the Washington Post covering this. I saw a few other outlets which I'm not too familiar with, which I had a look at which were definitely, international news organisations, which just give me some hope that the more international spotlight which is shone on this may put pressure or basically shame the government into lifting the ban on this particular organisation or whatever it is that needs to be done to stop this. So hopefully the government, with enough pressure, can be shamed into doing this, because that's how you get governments to do anything. You don't persuade them to do things, you shame them into doing things. That's just how the world works, I'm afraid. But anyway, thank you very much for joining me on this little excursion today. I'll be having a video out later, I hope. So thank you very much for listening to me, my little rant today, and I hope to catch you in the next video. So you have a good day wherever you are. So, bye-bye.